oh God, this is getting really dorky now. Like,
that's why we're here. So.
This is a safe space.
Hello and welcome to the Euro What, episode 85 for the week of May 4th, 2020. I'm Mike McComb, and I'm joined today by Ben Smith. Hey, Ben.
Hey, Mike.
We are a pair of Americans trying to make sense of the Eurovision Song Contest. And this week, we'll be talking about Eurostream 2020 and EurovisionAgain with special guest Rob Holley. How's it going, Ben?
It's pretty good. We've entered the part of quarantine where I have patterns again, and patterns are nice.
Oh, I remember patterns. Those do sound nice.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, like, it takes 21 days to form a habit, and it's been at least 21 days of quarantine, so now I just have terrible habits again.
Yay.
Yeah. I don't know, like, my hair has entered a state I've called a depressed Ben Wyatt.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no, it's fine. This just happens naturally.
Okay. Yeah, scheduling wise, it is kind of weird being in the early part of May and not just being glued to YouTube for rehearsal footage or any of the typical early May programming that I've gotten used to over the last several years.
Yeah, and just started looking at the Google Calendar and being like, oh, right, I was supposed to be taking a flight to Copenhagen this week.
Yeah, that's a challenge. But what we do have to look forward to this week is Eurostream 2020. It's a fan-driven project that we've been taking part in and helping to promote, where it's recreating the Eurovision experience from the fan perspective. So yeah, we were fortunate enough to host the second semifinal allocation draw last week.
Yep, that was fun.
That was fun. So much fun. And yeah, it was nice to dust off my French from 10th grade and put it back in the box as soon as we were done recording. Bury that again for another 15 years. Switzerland, I apologize for misgendering you at one point. Oh, goodness. But yeah, that was so much fun. We know the running order for both of the semifinals now, and the event's happening this week. Semifinal 1 is actually happening today as this episode drops. Semifinal 2 will happen on Thursday, and the grand final will happen on Saturday. And voting is already open for the first semifinal, at least. So if you head over to eurostream2020.com/vote, you can pick your choices for the first semifinal. And the way that the televote is working is very similar to Junior Eurovision, where you can vote for at least 3 countries and up to 5 countries. And you don't have to be a part of a participating country in the first semifinal. Voting's open for everybody, including countries that don't participate in Eurovision. So Ben, both you and I can vote as well. So
excellent.
Yes, and the results of the vote will be happening Tuesday afternoon, our time. The show starts at 3 p.m. Eastern, and you can watch the live stream on Facebook on the Eurostream 2020 Facebook page. And it should be a fun show. Thursday show, it's same format. Voting will be opening on Thursday at 6 a.m. Eastern, and runs through the whole day. You do not have to wake up at 6 a.m. To cast your votes for the second semifinal. And that show will also be at 3 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. And then on Saturday, the grand final with the 20 songs that qualify from the semifinals, plus the 6 auto qualifiers. That show will be starting at 3 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. So a lot of activity happening in this week, which is something to look forward to.
Yes, and if that is not enough excitement, great news. Next week is the Eurovision Song Celebration, which is the official deal. So in addition to doing Eurovision Europe Shine a Light on the 16th of May, on the 12th and 14th on the official Eurovision YouTube channel, they're going to be essentially doing semifinals, except that there's not a competitive element, so they're not really semifinals. But the exciting thing is that we will be getting what the producer run orders would have been, which is exciting to me as somebody who has sat down and tried to figure out, okay, how would I do this? How would I do this? Back in the days where we didn't know that this was not going to be happening this year, was trying to sit down and go, okay, but how would I do that?
Yeah. Yeah, and like really it's kind of funny how satisfying it's going to be to have that running order. Like I did not realize how much I missed not having that part of the structure the last couple of months, even though like, yeah, we don't need that structure because
we are celebrating the songs. They are not competing.
Yeah, but it's still like an element that's like, oh, that's going to be
like,
nice.
oh, this is, I have closure.
Yes, that is the exact way to describe it. Yeah.
Just picturing my ghost walking the earth. I just needed to know what the Eurovision 2020 running order was going to be. So there's a lot of alt programming going on as well. So ESC Extra has a great guide to all of the alt programming that's going on. The BBC has their thing, but they're also going to be showing Europe Shine a Light. Finland is doing a bunch of replays. Germany and Australia are including specials where they will perform their intended staging, which I'm very excited to see what Montaigne had cooked up for that one.
Same.
Mike, I have an uncomfortable question for you.
Yeah.
What other nation would you want to see their intended staging? Because I have one that immediately comes to mind.
I really wanted to see Netherlands staging. I think that one was going to be really interesting. I'm sure there are others. Come back to me on that one. Which one are you looking forward to?
I was going to say, show us the Sunit performance, you cowards.
Yeah, especially after her Eurovision home concert performance, because that was a lot of fun to watch. So.
Yes, she did like a Keith Urban during the one special and just had like multiples of herself. But yeah, I'm just like, I really want to know what they had in store for that performance. I don't know. I just wanted like some sort of weird quick change element to it, just because of how that song travels.
Yes, at least one costume change. I could see there being maybe 2 or 3. Like it is San Marino.
No, like I was like my brain just immediately horked up just from our favorite television program, like America's Got Talent. In the first season, back when America did have talent, like one of the acts was like a couple whose entire shtick is that they just did quick change magic.
Oh yeah, I think I saw.
And like
them.
They got raked over the coals for doing like the same changes. But just like one of those, but also Sunita singing her song.
Yeah, that would be fun. I think North Macedonia, that was one that I was interested to see how it was going to be staged, because I think that's a song that staging would have elevated it. If it's done in
Vasil is going to be getting a complete chiropractic adjustment on stage live.
Yeah, which, I mean, I don't know. It could work.
I don't know. Yeah.
But yeah, we will have a link to ESC Extras guide in our show notes, so you can see like what all of the other countries are doing, because there is a lot of alternate programming that's happening here in the States for like you Netflix consumers.
Like alternate programming that's not happening.
Yeah.
Anymore.
So if you wanted to relive the Eurovision 2019 experience, you have until May 18th. Last year's contest is scheduled to leave the platform on that day. I'm guessing because they assumed that Eurovision 2020 would be taking its place when that contract was signed. So, if you want those performances, want to watch those performances in non-VPN ways, you might want to get on that. And also the Eurovision movie is being delayed, or at least it's not on the Netflix schedule for May. Which
they have so much content they're sitting on right now. So like, it does not surprise me that now that there is not the thing that they were going to show to give context to their movie, they are no longer showing the movie. Right.
Or with the new streaming rules for the Oscars in play this year due to everything that's happening, I could see it being a late year entry Oscar push. Not at all.
Nope. They are not going to try and get Demi Lovato a Best Supporting Actress.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, on the other hand, Best Original Song.
Yeah. Oh, that didn't even occur to me. And yeah, I mean, like, I think this movie will have some sort of pull at the Golden Globes, depending on when it's dropped, just because it's the Golden Globes. But
it's the Golden Globes, and like they have like a history.
Yeah.
Well, and also like the Golden Globes, like my favorite fun fact about the Golden Globes is that we treat it like it's the same scale as the Oscars, but it's like 96 people doing the voting. That's why they're wacky.
Oh yeah. It's a thing, but it's not.
Category breakdowns. It's 96 easily bribable people.
That's all of, well, actually, no, that's not all of the Eurovision programming that's happening in the coming weeks, because for the last several weeks, there's been a fun thing happening on Saturday afternoons U.S. time, mainly on YouTube and Twitter. It's this event called EurovisionAgain. Everybody logs onto YouTube at the same time and watches the same contest, more or less in synchronization, and tweets along with it. This has been going on for about 5 or 6 weeks now. And it has been truly delightful.
It's been amazing. It has brightened my weekends.
Yes. And we were lucky enough to talk to Rob Holley from UK's Independent, who has organized the event and just started using the hashtag, and it has become a pretty major thing. Like it's been like an officially EBU sanctioned thing. I have been a huge fan of the interviews that Rob has done with particularly Iceland's acts leading up to the contest the last couple of years. Like he had a great interview with Dathi Freyr. He had a really good interview with Hatari last year. I was just kind of geeking out to talk with him. Yeah. And so we recorded this a little over a week ago. It was right after we watched the Finland 2007 Eurovision Song Contest. And yeah, we had this delightful conversation, which we will play for you right now.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Hey, no, it's good to be here.
So I know that Mike and I have both been deeply enjoying EurovisionAgain. I found Finland super fun to go back to.
Yeah, it was a good one. Well, I say that about all of them. It's really difficult to find a bad Eurovision, and they all bring something new to it. So it was great to go to Helsinki over the weekend, even if
because like last year, as part of like our off-season stuff, we decided to dip into the archives and went to 1979, and that was just a different experience.
Goodness, I haven't even watched that far back.
It's weird what sort of traditions have kind of carried over, because I think that was one of the first contests, if not the first one, to have the postcards before the performances. Right. And and just kind of seeing like how that was interpreted the first time around, because it involved a lot of mimes for some reason. And but then seeing like how Finland was doing their postcards this time around. My husband walked in about halfway through the show and saw one of the postcards and was like, oh, are these just random people and not the performers? Because he's only seen like the most recent contests.
Yeah. I mean, if those were the first postcards I'd ever seen, I'd be baffled by it as well. They were bonkers. Like, I do not understand what the was it YLE with the broadcasters. I don't know what was going through their minds. I mean, they were okay. They were good in terms of what they had to do. But like a Moomin playing chess with Santa, there was a guy trapped beneath a boat in the first postcard. It was just weird. There was like a
weird bookmobile romance.
With the knitting book. What?
I just assumed that the theme was just life is chaos.
Well, I assumed the theme was heterosexual relationships, because there was a lot of boys and girls, doing a little romantic thing in that. And I thought, this doesn't really chime with me. But, it was Finland's contest. Finland get to do what they want. Them's the rules. I don't make them up.
Yeah. So what was the origin of Eurovision again?
I'm finding out that there were quite a lot of rewatches and stuff going on before this had started, as I'm quite pertinently told by quite a lot of fans, which is fine. It's not a particularly original idea. I think over here in the UK, I don't know if you guys are familiar with something called Top of the Pops.
I'm vaguely familiar with it, yeah.
I am. But okay. I'm the music nerd here.
I've seen the first 5 minutes of Spice World, so
there we go.
Wow, I mean that's a great place to take all your British cultural references from. I totally recommend it. But Top of the Pops is this huge cultural institution over here in Britain that's been going on since, I think the 60s, certainly the 70s, and it would go out every single Thursday night on BBC One at tea time, and people would watch it, and it would affect how different singles did in the pop charts that week. So the BBC has this huge back catalogue going back years and years and years and years of Top of the Pops. And what they've done in recent years, I say recent years, this has been going on for like 10, 15 years now, is that they broadcast the old episodes chronologically since the very first ones on this thing we have here called BBC 4. And I think it's either Thursday or Friday night, they show a couple of episodes. And whoever's in it that episode, so at the moment I think we're up to 1989, usually trends on Twitter. So this week we had, bizarrely enough, Alice Cooper was popping up along with Sonia, coincidentally. So Sonia was the UK entry, I think, for 92 or 93 with Better the Devil You Know. She had a pop career before that when we used to send actual bona fide pop stars in the 80s. And she was on that episode of Top of the Pops. But every Friday night, the hashtag TOTP and those individual artists trend on Twitter because people like to watch stuff in sync and tweet about it. So for me, that was probably one of the biggest inspirations for it, just that I get involved with things like that, you know, tweet alongs. I think we all do. And the idea of doing a Eurovision one, that just came through boredom. And I found the original tweet earlier today because I was trying to work out how it all came about. And I just said, oh, does anybody fancy watching an old Eurovision in synchronization? And that sort of snowballed from there. I'm also a huge busybody, so I love you know, putting together creative bits and pieces or trying to make things work, trying to get people involved in different things. And so it's been a bit of a project for me to throw myself into whilst I'm locked in a room in South London. And just the heart and the love that goes into it, I hope is reflected throughout. Oh God, this is just sounds so wanky now, but like, you know, there's a lot of love for Eurovision and there's a lot of love from the community for doing stuff like EurovisionAgain. And all of my friends know that I'm a big fan of the show. And so they've all got involved and it's just snowballed. I love it. I just, you know, it's been one of the good things to come out of this lockdown.
I totally agree with that. I mean, particularly looking at it from like the historical perspective, because I'm just like you, where like just love tweeting along and live tweeting while watching something along with everybody else. Back in the days when Twitter was fun, and but yeah, like going back to these contests, particularly the ones that were from before I started watching. I didn't start watching the contest until about 2010, and having that Twitter experience with people who like are bringing in like their nostalgia perspective and like historical context. Like that was one of the things that was most shocking to me about the Finland show this past weekend, where I've seen the video from Molitva dozens of times, but not in the context of the contest, and had no idea it was immediately followed by Dancing Lascia Tumbai, which is such a gear shift.
That was, name a more iconic duo. That was just incredible.
Yeah.
And then the third song, Scooch. I mean, you know.
If you need like 10 minutes of Eurovision to show someone in America of like, this is why you watch, like Molitva into Dancing Lascia Tumbai into Scooch is a pretty solid 10 minutes to be like, it's all of these things.
Right, absolutely. But actually, it's funny because I was talking about Sonia earlier and us not sending bona fide pop stars, but actually Scooch in the UK probably had the same trajectory as Sonia. They had a few top 10 hits. Look, I really like Scooch. I love that song, and I liked them as a band before that, but you know, it was just glorious. I mean, they were, and also to go from the 1997 competition where the UK was doing really, really well with Katrina and the Waves to Scooch, who bless them, when those 7 points came in from Ireland and then the Douzepois from Malta. And I can't remember the name of the girl who was in Scooch, but she screamed with joy. Like,
yes,
those are the things that I love seeing in these old competitions that I either don't remember because they were donkeys years ago, or I don't remember because I was too drunk at the time. So it's really lovely to go back and see them as sort of like a historical historical document of Scooch, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, and like just thinking about the 1997 competition, it was so cool to see like a different tone because it felt so much more serious, I think.
Yeah.
Having mostly watched since like 2009, where it has been a very different vibe.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are certain times you can see where the contest evolves. Either you can pinpoint it to a specific year or to a sort of era, as it were. And I think that was the last really, how should I say, sort of like you could tell it was pre-millennium. Because 1998, the Birmingham one after that, they pretty much did away with the orchestras to the extent that people could use backing tracks, and they chose to a lot more. The language rule, that got relaxed. Televoting was all over the place in 1998 as opposed to the 5 that just chose to do it in 1997 as a trial. So 1997 for me is that sort of that last hurrah of the old competition, and things have to change and evolve, and I do think we have a better competition than we did back in 1997, but that 1997 competition really is a gold standard of the inverted commas old style Eurovision.
So the EBU was able to help you out with getting the 97 contest made available. How did the partnership with the EBU come about?
I guess for those who have no idea who I am, I'm not just some random guy off of just been invited to chat along. I've been a Eurovision fan for a long, long time, and I've been writing about it for a good 7 or 8 years now, I think it is. And it's taken a long time for me to get to a position where I feel that I can talk about it with a bit of confidence. I wouldn't call myself a mega fan, because there are people that can pluck out stats and years and names and foreign sayings out of their head in a way that I just, bow down to them. But I do consider myself to know quite a lot about the competition. I do write for it, for The Independent, about it on a yearly basis. So I do know some of the names involved with the EBU, but not on a friendly level. I just, know some people on the peripheral, and, I'm sure that, that has helped a little bit in the fact that I'm a freelance journalist. But essentially all that happened was the EBU guys have been watching EurovisionAgain and enjoying it, and saw how it sort of snowballed over the first couple of weeks. And then I got an email, I think it was the Sunday after week 2, from a guy at the EBU. I recognise the name, and I thought, oh God, this is going to be a cease and desist. They're going to say, can you please stop doing this? Take the word Eurovision out of the hashtag, stop talking about it. And it wasn't. It was just a really nice email saying, look, we really like what you're doing. We want to support the fan community, particularly in this time whereby we don't have a contest. And, let's have a chat if there's anything we can do to help. And that help is essentially them saying there are some years that we can put online. And, if we know in advance and in advance, we can work with each other and make sure that we've got a high quality, high definition version of that show with the voting, no commentary, because that was another problem. Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the first weeks when we watched Athens with this Norwegian commentary, it makes it quite difficult. And also, funnily enough, there are some full shows online, but then you get 30 minutes in and suddenly the music cuts out where YouTube is, taking it out because of copyright issues. So that was really a gift when the EBU got in touch to say, let's do this. And so I've chatted with them a couple of times and said, well, these are the years that I want to do. So there's always been a list, and we're sort of working our way through that list to see whether or not we can get those years, and whether or not the specific broadcasters that own the rights are going to show a little bit of goodwill and get involved. So that's been so helpful. And I think as well, they're probably quite pleased because, and I don't know this for sure, but I would imagine that they were going to put a lot of those years online anyway at some point. So for them to be able to say, right, let's put on 2007, it's never been there before, we can put it on in high definition, and to then get a load of attention as well on Twitter when that's going up. I mean, like last night, you look at the YouTube stats and it's already had 100,000 views.
Oh, wow.
So for them, it's a bit of a win-win, I would imagine. But also, I just think everyone wants to help each other. And the EBU, I mean, they do other things like sport and whatnot under the Eurovision banner, but I would imagine most of the people working for the EBU have some kind of fondness for the Eurovision Song Contest. So it's not beyond everyone's wildest dreams that they just decide to help out with something like this, because they love the show as much as we do. We're all fans in this together.
Oh, that's awesome.
Totally.
You mentioned that you had a list of shows that you want to have be part of this project. What sort of factors go into like which Eurovisions people should see?
Ooh. How did you choose 1979 to go and watch that?
Well, I think it was just partially because YouTube was like, hello, you've been watching a lot of old Eurovision stuff. Would you like to watch this? We have
There's
it.
More.
And yeah, it was nice in that it was 79 and 2019. So that was a nice, 40 years sort of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's no, I wouldn't say I sat there. Look, I don't want to be one of these people that is always talking about this is the best competition. Nothing can surpass this, There are no, for me, specifics. Every contest has something that is special about it. The 1997 one obviously had, the trialing of televoting. I had, in my head, I do think either, wow, this was a really good competition, I want to go back and revisit it because I remember it as good, or if it's got a unique kind of quirk to it, like, ditching the orchestra, or the first time it's in colour, or, the first time we get a Ukrainian win or something. So I do think about it like that. But there are also some competitions which I think are just really quite good and deserve to be seen in that high definition in a way that they haven't been before. Because I don't, like with 1997, the great thing about that is I've got memories of it in my head. I've seen fuzzy YouTube clips, but I've not seen it in that quality before. So it's really great to see that detail. The list that I put together goes, oh God, this is getting really dorky now.
That's why we're here. So.
Safe space.
When I put together this initial list that I sent over to the EBU, the way that I basically saw it happening was it had to have one that was from more recent times, and then one that goes back to earlier in the 21st century, possibly back into the 90s, maybe the 80s. So it needs to keep ping-ponging, because if you just see the three most recent ones, you might get a bit bored. Right. So that sort of explains why we've gone back and forth. But in that time, now that the EBU are able to approach people like RTE, that does have a little bit of an impact on when we can show things and the order of it. But there's no great bit. There are still, right. So I will level with you. There's two competitions that I still desperately want to see before this lockdown #EurovisionAgain ends. 2003, which I think is incredible. I've only seen it in kind of super fuzziness on YouTube, and I think there are bits missing, like the voting and stuff. I don't think I watched that the first time round because I would have been a student, and again, I just would have been really, really drunk at a party somewhere. Yeah. Also, 1998, I want to see the Birmingham one because I remember watching that as a kid, and I remember Malta doing particularly well. That's one of my first Eurovision memories, is Malta doing well at 1998, and obviously Dana International winning it. I say it's one of my first memories. It's really hard as a Brit because we've grown up with it. It's all over the place. There are cultural signifiers about Eurovision and Bucks Fizz and Brotherhood of Man and all this nonsense, and Sonia and Michael Ball. It's absolutely everywhere all the time. So you're never quite sure, or I'm not sure, when did I first start watching Eurovision? You just sort of know it's there. So 1998, to sort of clarify in my mind that I remember watching that one, I want to see that one in full high definition as soon as possible. So I think the EBU might be talking to the BBC at the moment, but we'll see.
Awesome. Yeah. So I guess with Twitter response that's been getting, because it feels like it's been growing week over week. So what's surprised you the most about the response to things so far?
Oh, everything about it. I mean, I know Eurovision is popular, but the fact that it's so over here we have a Simon Cowell talent show called Britain's Got Talent, and
we also have that here, and similar side about its general
God,
content.
didn't you had Piers Morgan on your version, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Jeez, I'm so sorry for that. Yeah. That's like... Crikey. So we have Britain's Got Talent, and I think it was either the first or the second week where it started to trend really, really big, and then it started overtaking Britain's Got Talent on a Saturday night, so goodness only knows what their social team think, because, they've got a Twitter emoji and everything. So it's completely dominating on a Saturday night, which is really, really lovely. So the whole trending thing has been really eye-opening, but also just all of the kind of nice personal stories where people are coming forward and saying, oh, this is really, really helping me get through the week, because it's helping me get through the week as well. I live in quite a small flat, and we're not allowed out very much, and I'm working during the week from home, but there are no really obvious signifiers that it's a Thursday or it's a Monday. To know that there's something coming up on the Saturday and you can engross yourself in that, it's a very social activity, you feel part of something bigger and connected. That is the really lovely thing that I love about Twitter and Eurovision. Again, it's that connectedness and seeing how much love there is for the competition, because I've got that love for the competition. I think we've all got that love for the competition. It's lovely.
I have just sort of loved that every week that Iceland has been involved, we've just sort of massively boosted their scores. As someone who was a massive fan of Hatari last year, massive fan of their entry this year.
So Paul Oscar, who is a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, said that he would help us and he'll do a little intro to it. And it's funny because that was the year before televoting was prolific. There were only five nations that were trialing the televote, or the telephone vote, as the host said. And what was really lovely about that was that when all the scores came in, all of the fusty juries sort of gave him no points whatsoever. But out of the 5 nations that were doing it by televote, including I think the UK, Sweden, and it may have been Norway, they voted for him. And I think had he been the next year when there were more televoters, or had he been in the 2000s, he would have done really, really well, because that production of that song, the way that he staged, I mean, no one else in that competition was staging stuff in the way that he was doing and dictating the camera shots and doing this dance. Afterwards, I sent him the updated scoreboard where Iceland came 4th. So he rocketed up the table, and he was just so lovely and touched by it. And I had a little cry, and like, it's just so nice, because, you know, I think growing up as a queer youth, and seeing that kind of act on telly was really helpful for me as a teenager. So to be able to give a little bit of justice out 20 odd years later is just such a lovely, lovely thing. Sorry, I'm rambling a bit.
No,
does that
answer
your question?
So how has your relationship with Eurovision changed in the course of this project?
I don't think it's changed at all. I mean, look, it's all come from the fact that we've all got this pent up energy that we were going to all splurge out into Rotterdam in May, and it's just channeling that energy into something else and keeping it going. I mean, where are you guys in America?
I'm in Chicago.
Yeah, and I'm in Boston.
I don't know if it's the same over there. I would imagine it's not, but like, I live in London, and we have lots of Eurovision parties and club nights. I run a club night called Schlager Divas, which pops up every couple of months and stuff. There's a lot for fans to do all year round. Like, we're not starving for Eurovision content and partying and fun. For me, it hasn't really changed. It's just kind of channeling all my energies into something that's online on Twitter and enjoying it in that way. I mean, has it changed for you guys?
I mean, we definitely don't have like the year-round Eurovision exposure. Like it's pretty much just between us.
Well, yeah, because like I have. So in Boston there is sort of a little kind of local makerspace for podcasts where they've done sort of monthly meetups.
Right.
And like the first time I went to one, like everybody's in a circle is talking about the show they do. Everybody's doing very serious journalist or sociology driven things. I'm like, hello. I co-host a podcast about the Eurovision Song Contest, and someone goes, the Euro what? I'm like, yes, that's the name of the program. So there's that. We randomly ran into one of the other American podcasts about Eurovision at a trivia thing in March, and that was hilarious. That of all of the places in the world to run into another Eurovision podcast, it was not in Rotterdam in May. It was in Chicago in March.
Oh, Eurovision fans get everywhere, though. I mean, I'm really, really sorry. I've never been to America. Are Boston and Chicago close to each other? Are they miles apart? Are they?
Like it was like a 2.5 hour flight from Boston to Chicago. Yeah.
So it's basically like London to Warsaw. It's a long way.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't have any, no one puts on any little Eurovision parties or anything. I know when my friend lived in New York, my drag queen friend called Sybil War, who...
That's a great name.
She's really incredible. She lived in New York, and she put on would always put on a Eurovision viewing party. And I think she did a few parties as well. But I don't know what it's like in Boston or Chicago, whether there's a scene for that kind of thing where that sort of event could take place. But a lot of the stuff that happens in London is just because, well, like with Eurovision again, fans get bored. So they're like, right, we're going to party, we're going to drink, we're going to do something. And there's a lot of venues that will be like, yeah, sure, come, you do that, just do your own thing. And then they sort of boom because, you know, once you start playing Eurovision music, all the fans want in on it.
As it gets closer to Eurovision the last couple of years, I've been like just checking Facebook events and websites for gay bars and stuff, just to be like, do you have any sort of Eurovision programming, just to like put together a list? And
just as like a thing for the website, really.
Yeah. And even then it's only been about a dozen things that I could find. And like a handful of them are in Chicago. There's a large Swedish neighborhood about 1.5 miles from where I live. So,
okay.
Yeah. So that's probably over representing things a little bit, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it's funny you should say that. Back over here in London, we have this place called Little Stockholm. I don't even know that it's referred to that anymore, basically, but it's where all the immigrant Swedes lived whenever it was, and it's sort of like you have a little Italy and a Chinatown and whatnot. And there's a Swedish church in Marylebone over here, and the only way that you could watch Melodifestivalen in the early to mid noughties was going to this church or to the pub next to it called the Harcourt Arms and watching it via a dodgy Swedish satellite TV link. So a little community sort of you'd go to a church and it was half Swedish people and half gays, but they do get together and and watch these old competitions, and it's really lovely. I still go to the church definitely for the opener of Melodifestivalen and sometimes for the finale as well, because it's such a nice communal experience to do that. But back in the day, this was like 10 years ago, that was the only way that you could watch Melodifestivalen over here. But obviously now with SVT Play, everyone can watch it everywhere, and that's been a really great thing of the last few years, is that the quality, I think, of the Eurovision competitors has gone up because they're now more accountable, all of the different countries, because people abroad can stream the competitions, like Lithuania this year. That was an incredible national selection.
That was fantastic. Like that, like when we would on the weekend have to like prioritize, okay, who's watching what, is like we were both watching Pabondum is Now live because it was the thing to watch.
What did you call it?
Pabondum is Now? Yeah.
Right, that's the first time I've heard it said out loud. So I had no idea how it was pronounced.
I'm pronouncing it correctly because, again, I just see it in writing and I'm hoping that my pronunciation is anywhere near what it's supposed to be.
I know the translation is "here we go again." Yep. So, which is lovely. But that national final was amazing. It was really, really incredible. I mean, Alligator was the one that I wanted to see win, but I think it was obvious that The Roop would have been really, really great at Eurovision, and it's a shame that that they're going to have to go again, as it were. Over here in London, just things spring up, and I would say if you guys get anywhere that will give you a bar for a Thursday or a Sunday night, just put on an event and take it from there, because that's the best way of keeping the Eurovision stuff going. Obviously, you can't now because of lockdown, but once
they unlock the doors
in the future, when we have bars again.
So, who were you rooting for this year?
Iceland. Beyond anything else, Iceland, I thought, were going to win it. They were going to completely smash it. I don't think I can recall any Eurovision act having huge amounts of PR behind them in February. Like, that's crazy. But also just the song, the concept, his personality. I think Dathi Freyr was onto something there that is really, really hard to manufacture, and it was just sort of a perfect storm of things. The song itself, I love it. It's like stuff that I'd listen to outside of the Eurovision bubble. And it's very retro, but also it sits alongside stuff like Dua Lipa, even though it's not a banger in that sense of the word. It's got this strange sort of 80s retroness that sounds crisp and modern and has a story to tell. I loved it. I mean, what did you guys think?
So I watched the first week of Iceland's semifinal, having gone to Airwaves last year, and been like, oh man, how is like nothing I saw at Airwaves last year and really liked popping up here like I was hoping it would. And then week 2 happened, and Dathi Freyr opened the show. I was like, this needs to get to the final immediately.
I think Songvakeppnin are onto something, because so he was in it 3 or 4 years ago, and I thought that was going to win, but they ended up sending
that was
Paper, which actually on paper, pardon the pun, isn't a bad song. It's just not got it had no heart to it. And then afterwards they sent that terrible then
they sent Ari, and
that was it. I mean, he's a lovely guy, he was really lovely, but like the song was dog. And then Hatari were amazing. So I went to Songvakeppnin last year, and I got to meet Hatari and hang out with them for a little bit, and because I was writing about them for The Independent, and they were just brilliant. They were so much fun. The amount of energy and creativity that they put into their entry, was completely unsurpassed until, again, Dathi Freyr this year. And I think the great thing that both Dathi and Hatari have done is they've made this national final a bit of a melting pot for ideas. So people now know that they can either put in a song that's like Paper, is good on paper, they can, try and compete with that, or they can try and engineer an entire entry that has heart, that's got a story to it, that has memorable bits to it, that is an actual performance. And you can see that it doesn't take a lot to kind of inspire people and to get people up and voting for you. You just need to make sure that what you're doing works as a concept in that 3 minutes. So I think he definitely would have won. If not won, it would have come, I'm not even going to say it would have come top 3. It would have won. There's no doubt about it. It's just everyone absolutely, everyone that interacts with that song ends up loving it. But there were, other songs that I really liked. I liked Tears Getting Sober. I thought it was really good. I liked Little Big until the horrible video of their homophobia surfaced on YouTube, and I was really looking forward actually to going to Rotterdam so I could grill them about it, because that sort of ruined that for me. What else? Oh, Cleopatra, my God. And the fact that there's this whole, I'd heard Cleopatra, I allegedly heard Cleopatra around Christmas time, and you know how things leak and you hear demos and whatnot. And it was kicking about with its sort of name attached to a couple of different countries. And there's a rumor that it was supposed to go to San Marino.
I heard that one.
And I do wonder.
Yeah, because that was like my notes for that song was like, I think San Marino is supposed to have this one.
Yeah. Who is it who sings it? Is it Effendi?
Yes.
It's a really good version, but I think I preferred the demo that I heard. So again, there's all these what ifs, like if San Marino had it, would they have done a bit of a better job? I don't know. What else do I like? I can tell you what I don't like.
Please do.
I nearly got stuck in the Baltics because I went to watch UMK, which is the Finnish final.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was in the audience for that. And I don't understand why they didn't send Chichi Alina and why Erika Vikman didn't win there, because when we were walking through Helsinki the morning before, every single newspaper, every single magazine had her face on it. I think there's a lot to be said about having national judges on your jury who have quite a high points weighting, because you really should be sending something that's representative of what your country's population wants. And the thoughts of the international community should be a bit of a steering. But even so, I say the thoughts of the international community. We're talking about Polly Geneva and Laura off of Verona, who, as lovely as they are. And I got to meet them backstage actually, and they were really super lovely. But as lovely as they are, should they really be having input into what Finland sends? I don't know. So they went with Axel. It was such a, the press release called it like a world weary song. It's like, he's 19 years old. If he's world weary at this, what could he possibly be world weary? Anyway, so that Finnish song that they sent, I think really does test my patience. But you know what? They were the first country to turn around and say, yeah, no, we're not giving him a golden ticket. We're going to try again next year. So maybe we'll get Erika Vikman back. And the other one that I really didn't like this year is the French one. I'm really sorry, but it's, oh, God.
Yeah, especially after the last 2 years of Destination Eurovision, which granted those were like middle of the table entries. Exactly. They were at least interesting to think about.
But also, we sent that song from the UK last year. How did they not see this trap? So it's so weird, isn't it? So yeah, top of my table, Iceland all the way. I do like the Russian one. I love the Bulgarian one. There's a couple of others I like. I think it would have been a really good year. Certainly a fascinating year.
Yeah, this was such a strong field, and unfortunate that we won't get to see them live, but at least the community still seems really engaged with the music, which is fantastic.
Yeah, with the exception of Sanremo and Melfest, because they're beyond Eurovision in a way. Those guys are just going to do their own thing. But all the countries that I think knew that they were onto a good thing are going to be sending those acts now. And those acts have 12 months to prepare something really spectacular for May next year, or they might have even longer, because I'm not even sure that it's going to be May next year if it goes ahead. I think that's really optimistic.
Yeah, I agree.
We're probably looking at the summer of next year, if not the autumn. But they've now got time to prepare that, which is really, really great. The acts there are another kind of golden ticket selection of acts like Destiny, who, again, as I was saying about Axel, who, wrote a song about being world weary at the age of 19. Destiny's song as well. I'm really glad that she's not going with that because I think she's a winner. And however good she is vocally, if she's got a song that just doesn't really represent her and where she's at, I don't think it would necessarily do amazingly well. And she deserves a really world-class song. So I'm hoping she'll go away now, get a bit of life experience, and again, come back a little bit more confident in who she is with a much better song. Not that it's a bad song. I mean, look, I'm from the UK. We take that any day.
Yeah. But it's not good for her.
You just, yeah. I mean, she's expected to win, right? They want her to win. I think the community wants her to win, and she's got the vocal abilities to win. She just needs that good song. So I think it's going to be, even though we don't get this year, I think it's going to be a really amazing one when it finally does go ahead.
Agreed. So one other thing I wanted to talk about with regards to Eurovision Again was like the charity aspect that's popped up in the last few weeks, because I thought it's been great.
Yeah. I mean, look, I've worked in, so my day job, I work for the NHS over here. That's the National Health Service. And I've always worked in either good causes or charities or whatnot. We've got charities over here called Prostate Cancer UK, Terence Higgins Trust, and the Teenage Cancer Trust. So I've worked in the charity sector quite a lot, and I know how much they need money at the moment. And so I decided, I think week 2 or 3, to try and raise 500 quid, and it just completely smashed it. The charity that we did it for is called Mermaids. So Mermaids help young trans and non-binary kids and their families who are going through really difficult times, not just because of the COVID-19 situation, but in the UK we've got a real horrible problem with transphobia. I think it's completely beyond anything that you've got in America, just in that our press are quite openly transphobic. There's a lot of politicians who are openly transphobic. It's really, really horrible at the moment. So I thought, well, anything we can do to raise a few hundred quid for them would be really good. And it raised $3,500, which I guess is the equivalent to about $7 now. Now
Give
that
or take,
Brexit has completely screwed our currency. Well, it's a lot of money. And then after that, I thought, well, it would be nice to open it up to some more LGBT charities. So it's going forward, it's Mermaids who help trans and non-binary youth. Terence Higgins Trust, I used to work there. They do a lot of work with HIV and sexual health. And Stonewall, who help LGBTQ plus people of all different shapes, sizes, ages. They get involved with a lot of lobbying government and making change happen. That's been a really fantastic thing. And I think obviously, even though the Eurovision community is a broad church, there's a lot of people in it who aren't queer or aren't necessarily going to benefit from these charities. They've all really taken to it and they're chipping in all the time. So I was totting up the figures earlier, and I think we've now just made £10,000, which is so good.
That's so
awesome.
good.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and those guys really, really deserve the money. So yeah. So if anyone listening wants to donate to them, please do go to the website. You can find the fundraising link there. The website is again.vision.
And we'll have a link to that in the show notes. And anything else that you would like to plug?
I mean, I've got a podcast coming up, funnily enough. So I would have been in Rotterdam doing lots of interviews with different contestants. If anyone wants to read the stuff that I've written in the past, Google me, Rob Holley, Independent. There's a really nice interview with Hatari last year that I'm really proud of, but there's loads of bits and pieces I've done over the years. And what I wanted to do is still do the interviews that I would have been doing with those contestants, but to put them into a podcast form. So there's a couple that are going to come up in the next few weeks. I've already spoken to Dathi Freya, the Mamas, who are just, they're angels. Like I switched off of that Skype call beaming and chuckling to myself. They are so lovely. And also Victoria. So there'll be those interviews coming up in the next couple of weeks. The other thing that I think must be quite nice as well for Americans is the fact that these contests that the EBU are putting up, they're not restricted, right? So you can just click and watch them.
So far, there haven't been any problems. Like the geo-blocking didn't really kick in until 2016. So if we could just keep all the contests before then, that would be great on our...
And is there a specific contest that you guys would like to see?
Oh, I mean, 1998 definitely jumps out just because I've only seen like the blurry video of Dana International's winning performance. I think 1974, the ABBA contest, not just for ABBA, but there was so much going on at that contest, and just being able to see the whole thing in context would be fascinating.
Yeah, I'd love to see that one too.
Ben?
I think just like the 98 one, as we've all mentioned, because I think of that one for a lot of reasons, but yes.
We'll petition them. We'll try our best.
Rob, thank you so much for joining us. This was
No worries. It's been lovely, and I love speaking to Americans about Eurovision. It's so, it's so nice because the fandom over here. I mean, I've completed it. I know them all.
Yeah.
So to move out of that, actually, it's not. It's just to get a perspective from outside of the sort of weird UK bubble or the weird European bubble. It's so nice to see people getting into it more across the water. And I don't know how it went with. Well, I imagine it didn't go very well with Logo and that, but like I suspect there'll be ways that the Eurovision Song Contest is just going to get bigger and bigger in America in a way that that it needs to, because it's just so much fun and so easily accessible now. It's like a bonus bit of entertainment that anyone can get involved with. So yeah. And it's funnily enough, I was looking at the web statistics for the Again.Vision website, and after Britain and Sweden, America was up there in third with the number of visitors. Really? So it's yeah. I think there's a lot of Americans taking part, and I saw it was trending in America, like low down in the trends. But given that it's not ever been a thing there, that's pretty special, I think. Yeah. So hopefully it will continue to be a thing.
It's the closest thing we have to sports right now. So
well, there's still Belarusian football, which people over here are streaming. True. You guys heard about that, right?
I've seen references to it, and that like they didn't really do any sort of social restriction or social distancing.
Yeah, they're absolutely crackers. I think up until last week, and I say up until last week, I don't know if they've stopped it, but the Belarusian Premier League was still going ahead. So all of the sports fans, all of the football fans over here were just like picking random Belarusian teams and supporting them. It's insane. It's insane. So if you're looking for some sports entertainment, Belarus, they got loads of sports going on.
Good to know. That was so much fun.
That was just week brightening.
Yes. So thank you again, Rob, for taking the time to speak with us on this. And you can find Eurovision Again on Twitter under the hashtag EurovisionAgain or at EurovisionAgain. And we don't know what this week's show is going to be. It's always a mystery. We don't find out what year is going to be covered until 15 minutes before showtime.
Since we chatted with him, the Telegraph has been doing like a series of like lockdown award nominees, and he was nominated for Eurovision Again.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, congratulations on that. And I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Euro What. Thank you for listening. The Euro What podcast is hosted by Mike McComb, that's me, and Ben Smith.
That's me.
You can find us on our website at eurowhat.com and on Twitter and Instagram at Eurowhat. You can subscribe to the Euro What on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcast app of your choice. When you subscribe, leave us a review, let us know how we're doing, and help other Eurovision fans find us. We'll be back in 2 weeks to try to make sense of what's new in Eurovision.